Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of how to build a router table. Now in this video, we're going to focus on the top of the router table, the top, the fence, attaching it to the base that we built in part 1, and then adding some finishing touches and accessories. Now for the top itself, I decided to go with an MDF top, and I've got some 3/4 inch MDF that I've broken down already to some more manageable sizes. Still not down to their finished size yet, but you know, a little bit more manageable to handle in my small shop. And I'm going to be taking this 3/4 inch MDF and laminating it together to make an 1.5 inch top. And what I've decided to do is I'm going to end up trimming this out with some hardwood. I want to do a hardwood trim on the outside. So we'll probably use something like a walnut or something, give it a nice look. Now for once the top is laminated together, then I'm going to actually be laminating it and coating it with some Formica. And I decided to go with a kind of a textured look Formica, a little off-white. A little bit different than what I've done in my past videos. I've used just white Formica, and it's great and all, but after some time it starts to show some wear and tear and you know, some dirt and buildup and everything of, you know, paints and glues and all that stuff. So I'm hoping this off color will, you know, last a little bit longer as far as keeping it clean. I guess it all comes down to how well I maintain it when I'm done using it. I've also got some additional MDF here that I've broken down to some manageable pieces. These will end up being cut down to for parts for the fence. Now for the fence, I've got a couple of ways that I want to go, you know, or a couple designs and a couple options and everything. I know I want some micro adjustability. I know I want some sliding faces on the fence so I can do some offsets if I ever need to do any joining on the router table. There's a lot of features. Definitely dust collection is very important. So there's a lot of features I want to get into, and I've got a bunch of accessories here from Rockler Woodworking and Hardware, and I want to thank Rockler for jumping in and supporting this video and helping out with some of these accessories. But we've got some multi-track, we've got some various T-tracks and fence caps. I've got some accessories such as feather boards and dust ports, flip stops, and of course the all-important router plate. My router plate that I had in my table saw wing extension was just a piece of 1/4 inch plastic that I made it out of, and I thought, well, this time I want to do something a little bit nicer, and so I've got the Rockler router plate, and this particular plate is designed, already pre-drilled and everything, for the Bosch 1617 router that I'm using, and that's my router of choice. And anything I do, I'm a big fan of that router. So we'll get more into the accessories and all when we start building the fence and you know, laying the T-tracks and stuff in the table, but right now let's go ahead and get started on getting this table together, because once we get it laminated, we got to cut it down to its final size. And the last thing I'll say about that, I'm going to end up with a 36 inch long by about 22.5 inch wide router tabletop when all said and done. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, I've got my edge banding and got it cut down to, it's 3/4 inch wide, it's walnut, and it's about 1 9/16 you know, height, because my table, the 2 3/4 inch MDF, it's 1.5 inch thick, and I want a little bit of proudness there so I can flush trim it when it's all said and done. And I want to get my edge banding on before I do the Formica. Now my table is still oversized. I still got to cut it down, but I want to make sure that after I get the edge banding and everything on, that my final dimensions of this table is 36 inches in length, about 22 inches wide. Alright guys, in this next step I went ahead and applied the walnut edge banding, took a small trim router with a flush trim bit, and I flushed it up to match the surfaces of both the top and the bottom of this table. I took a couple of sheets of Formica and cut them down to a little bit oversized, so that way when they're applied I can flush trim them to size, and I'm going to be doing both the top and the bottom. This will keep the tabletop from flexing any, and MDF is pretty stable as it is, but there could be a tendency of it wanting to, you know, flex, and the Formica on both sides will help prevent that. So what I'm going to be using to adhere the Formica to the top is just basically some simple contact cement. This is Weldwood's contact cement. Got a paint roller and a small little pan, and basically going to coat both surfaces, let it sit for about 15-20 minutes till it becomes tacky, and then I'll use a J roller to apply everything. So we'll go ahead and get that done now. Alright, so I've got the top rolled on, the top and the bottom, both sides. I've got the Formica on, and I went ahead and rolled it. That J roller just helps add, about 75 pounds of, pressure or force to kind of adhere the two sides together. Now it's going to take about 7 days for the maximum hold to take effect, but once those two parts come together and are bonded, they're pretty solid. So I'm going to go ahead and take just a small trim router, flush trim bit, and I'm going to go ahead and flush it up to the sides of the table. Alright guys, well, I've come to the most, in my opinion, the critical part of the table. Now I've put the table together, I've got the Formica top and bottom on, and now it's come to the part to where I have to cut the opening for the router plate, and I'm using the Rockler phenolic router plate, and this particular router plate is already pre-drilled for the Bosch 1617 router that I'm using for my table. And they have various router plates for various routers. Now the crucial thing about this is I've got everything laid out, and I've got everything marked out on the top. And for me, it's kind of the scariest part, because this has got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect where this plate sits in there. Now I got to keep in mind that when I route the opening for the thickness of the router plate, I'll go a little bit deeper than the router plate, because there's going to be levelers on the table, so I can level the plate, flush with the surface of the table. And then also I've got the center opening that I got to cut out all the way through, for the router itself. Now, there's a lot of different methods with putting the router plate in. Some of the methods is to mount your router plate and then build a frame around it with, you know, 3/4 inch material or something. Just build it, you know, a frame around it, and then use a router with a guide bearing, you know, to run the interior of that frame for this to sit into. And it's a method that works. You know, you use double-sided tape, you stick it all down and everything, and it works well. And you see that method in a lot of router tabletop builds. Well, I'm going to use my tried and true method, and it's using my Super Smart routing kit. Now, this is a track-guided router system. It's got X, Y, and Z axis movement. I've already gotten, let me move this out of the way. On my guide rail, I've got my X limit stops, which limits my movement back and forth, and I've got them set so that I'm routing just the area that I need. And then on the router base itself, I've got my Y limit stops. And when this is on the guide rail, my Y limit stops limit my movement back and forth. So I've already got everything laid out for the size of this router plate. And slow and steady wins the race. I'm not going to be in any hurry to do this. I've got my depth set, but I'm going to be taking small, you know, cuts, and I'm going to knock this out. And I'm going to do this before I do all the other routing, you know, for the T-track grooves and stuff. Because to me, and it may, you know, be different from other people, but to me, this is the crucial part. The fence, no big deal. It's going to be a cakewalk. The T-tracks, want to get those grooves perfect and everything for the fit of the T-tracks and stuff, but this big area here is it's a little scary to be honest with you, because I don't want to screw it up. I don't want to have to start all over. I don't want to have to, you know, so I have tuned in my Super Smart routing kit for my limits to where I need to route. Got my depth set. The only thing left to do is to jump right in and take it nice and easy and get her done. Alright, well, as I was finishing up or getting closer towards the finish, I'm not sure at what point my camera ran out of disk space, but you might not, you know, I don't think the ending got in here, but just to give you a quick walkthrough, what I did was I started at the furthest point of my cut away from the guide rail that runs the SSRK, and worked my way in, and I came in halfway at the first depth, and then went back, plunged down to the next depth, came in, and then my final depth halfway, and then I finished off doing the same thing on the other half. So here's my cutout, and I've got to still go deeper through the center and everything, and I was about to plunge through, but I wanted to just get this far first, and then I'll figure out how big my router is to figure out what I need to cut out, because I need to leave some area in the corners for the levelers and stuff. The depth is perfect. It's right above the surface of the plate, so now I'll be able to use my little levelers to level everything flush. But that fit is phenomenal, and I could not be happier. Now I just need to work on my dados grooves for the T-tracks. I got 2 T-tracks that are going to be running down the side for the fence to run on, and then T-track and stuff to run on the front. We'll get those set up, but this was the first part to tackle, and then I'll go ahead here in just a few minutes. I'll go ahead and route out this center for my router once I lay out how big my router is and all that stuff and all. But yeah, man, just phenomenal results. Hey guys, well that completes the router table build. I tell you, I'm really liking it. You know, I put some walnut trim on the outside, and I just took some Danish oil and rubbed some Danish oil on it to, you know, as a finish. But the Formica top, nice slip surface for materials and everything. And then I've got T-track all the way around the table, which is going to give me a lot of uses for just, you know, even as a clamping table and things like that. I've got some, you know, little accessories such as this T-track clamp and everything. It's like a T-track hold down clamp that I can run in here if I'm ever doing, you know, some assembly or whatever the case may be, whatever I need to use it for. There's a couple of jigs that I want to build for this. I've already got a coping sled, but there's a few other jigs that this T-track clamp will come in handy. The fence itself, I've got a split fence, adjustable split fence on both sides, and on the top of that split fence I've got some T-track, and then I've got another T-track running across the top of that, which is actually the top or the front of the multi-track that's up here. And across the multi-track I got 3 grooves. The fence itself is made up of 2 pieces of multi-track, and they're assembled together, and then of course the adjustable fence, you know, slides back and forth in that. And I'll take you around the table and I'll show it to you. Alright, so let's start off with the top of the table. So I've got this intersection so I can do all kind of clamping and just different things that I might need to do on the table without the fence on it. And then those T-tracks run, they just dead end into this T-track. There's no intersections here because I didn't want to do any routing up this front area here because I wanted to leave space if down the road I wanted to add a miter slot. You know, it left me some room to do that. So these just dead into this T-track, and this T-track is going to be primarily used for holding feather boards and things like that to keep material up against the fence. Now the router plate has 2 screws here that hold everything down, but you remove those screws, and then on the bottom side of the table there's some adjustment screws to adjust all 4 corners of the router plate to bring it flush to the tabletop, which I like. Let's take a look at the fence now. The fence has got a lot going on in the back. I've got 2 of these angle brackets here with T-bolts that run in the T-track that for the back and forth. These 2 brackets here hold the top multi-track to the back multi-track. And then I've got a dust port mounted on the back here. Now, I did have to cut out a section of this multi-track, and again, that went relatively easily and everything with the hacksaw. On the front of the fence, I've got T-tracks and everything for feather boards. And again, I've got that, you know, multi-adjusting or, you know, adjustable fence on the front, and I've got those T-tracks that run up. So between those 2 T-tracks, now this T-track here in the center, I've got a removable tape measure. I just went ahead and put that on there. I'll figure out a use for it in a little bit to work with my stops and everything. And then I have this flip stop. So that is the fence, and it's rock solid and absolutely square to the table, which is what I like. When those brackets on the back, when they are tightened down, when the fence is secured, it pulls this fence nice and square, so I really like that. Let's take a look at the lower side of the table. Alright, so on the lower side I've got plenty of access for the router underneath here, so I can reach under, I can remove the router with a simple twist to change the router bits, and at some point in time I may think about a router lift of sorts, so I can do some above the bit, you know, above the table bit changes. But all I cared about was the height adjustment, being able to adjust the height from the top of the table, which I can do. If you can see these little silver marks over here, these are the leveling screws. So from underneath I can level that router plate on all 4 corners and make it flush with the tabletop. Right, mounted right to the front, I got a big start and stop button here that I can bump with my knee. Really, you know, I think that's a good feature. I don't have to reach under here and hit the on and off button anymore. I had to do that with my old table. I had to reach around into that cabinet that I built and turn it on and off. So this was a nice addition for it. All right, on the right hand side of the table, because I'm left-handed, so I wanted all the stuff that I need to access for the router, such as my feather boards and push blocks and all that. I wanted them on the left side of the table, so I've got the trays mounted over here. But on the right side of the table, I've got this table apron that has multiple pockets, and I've got my 2 tools for changing my bits and some miscellaneous tools in here. And I'll go ahead and end up filling this in with tools that have that end up just on the countertop, or don't really have a place and they get stuffed in a drawer. I'm going to go ahead and max this pocket out and put some things in that I can relatively have access to, which I thought was a pretty neat accessory for the side of the table. At first I wasn't thinking, when I designed the table, I didn't even think about that, and Rockler actually said, hey, why don't we add one of these to the table, and I think you'd like it, and I agree, I do like it. So a bunch of cool stuff over there. And finally, on the left side of the table, I've got these dust-free trays, and the reason why they're called dust-free is there's perforated holes. It's a grid on the bottom here, so dust can't build up. And that's got things like my little starter pin, Allen wrench for the adjustable fence, and I'll have my clamp and stuff in there. Some miscellaneous items will be, just fall into this small one, pencils and things like that. The lower one is deeper, and it's about 5 inches, I guess, yeah, about 5 inches deep, 5 inches wide, something like that, but 3 inches deep, I'm sorry, and 5 inches wide. And it's got, I've got my, grip blocks, my push blocks. I've got some feather boards here, and then I have some other accessories. Now these are some accessories that are for a miter slot, and I don't have a miter slot on the table, but I do have other jigs and stuff that I'm going to be making, so those will come in handy. So those are just kind of down there, and I'll probably reorganize this a little bit better. Right now I just kind of threw the stuff in here, but so I've got those 2 trays, and that's kind of my catch-alls for miscellaneous things, and I'm really happy about that. Now the one thing I didn't show you is the micro adjuster. So let's go back up to the top of the table, take a look at that, and we'll call it a day. All right, and finally on the back side of the table, I have a micro adjuster that I can micro adjust this fence in small increments if I need to really fine tune that fence, and it'll work both left and right side. I've got it on the right side of my table here, and it's completely, it's got a magnet on it that attaches to a plate that's back here, and I can move it from one side of the table to the other. But if my fence is far up on the table, then I can position this where I need it. So it just comes right in, clamps to the table, and then I can micro adjust this fence, and I only need it for one side, so you only really need one of these. And that is the last little accessory that I have for this table. Alright guys, well, that little tour of the router table completes this video. I want to thank you for sticking around and watching, and hopefully throughout part 1 and part 2 you can take some of what I have presented you here and use it in your shop, or use it towards some of the processes in your next projects and stuff, because that's my whole goal, is to provide you with as much information as possible to help you out with your woodworking, and to maybe inspire you in some way. And I know that this particular video it was long, and it went into a lot of detail on a lot of different things, processes, tools, and stuff like that, and the way the top was cut and all that stuff. And that's just my way of relaying as much information as possible. So I thank you for sticking through this video and watching it. And again, hopefully some of what I have showed you will be useful in your upcoming projects. And again, I do want to thank Rockler and MicroJig for being a part of this video, and guys, without companies like them supporting us video woodworkers, it's you know, tough to do what we do, and so I want to thank them, and I want to thank all of you. You know, without you, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, and it's a great thing. I also want to give a big shout out to Rockler. A little announcement here: September 25th to 27th. I'm going to be in Kansas City at the Video Woodworkers booth. There's going to be about 20 of us content creators there. A lot of big names, a lot of you know, creators that you know, Drew Short, Nick Ferry, Steve Ramsey. I mean, just a lot of different people, and there's so many. There's more than I can mention. We're all going to be at the booth, and Rockler was a friend to the Video Woodworkers. They've always been a friend of the Video Woodworkers, and they were nice enough to provide some big prizes and stuff to give away at the booth and all. So if you're in the Kansas City, Missouri area, September 25th through 27th, come to Woodworking in America show, and come to the booth and say hi, meet us, and hang out and have some giveaways and stuff. So I hope to see a lot of you there. Again, thank you guys. I know I haven't been around much, and I'm trying my best to get back into video creations. My next project is actually going to be my workbench. I got inspired by this base for this router table, and I talked to you about it in part 1, about using that same concept to build a workbench. I already got it laid out in my head, and so I thought, well, no time like the present, so I'm going to build that workbench. That's going to be the next project, and then we'll get into some other small fun stuff as I get back into it. Just got to trying to work on ways to round up material and stuff like that. But all right guys, I talk a lot. Everybody says I talk a lot, but hopefully you, my faithful YouTube subscribers and friends and fans and family, hopefully you don't mind that I talk too much. Until next time guys, I'll see you soon. Hey guys, you want to know more about the tools and accessories that I use to build this router table? Well, check out the description below and you'll find a link to all those tools and accessories, such as the Super Smart Routing Kit, or all the tabletop and fence accessories from Rockler.com, as well as the gripper and grip block accessories from MicroJig.com. Down below, all the links, all the information you need to know. Cool stuff. Check it out.